Okay, the topic today is chord tones and how to use chord tones over a jazz standard, in this case, Autumn Leaves. It's a tune that a lot of people get introduced to when they start out improvising, and what happens is that it's a tune that is in the kind of same key. It's in G minor or B flat major-ish, and you can kind of noodle around in B flat over the whole tune if you know your B flat scale, or G minor, and it sounds kind of good. So I'll show you what it sounds like if I'm just playing around in those keys. So it's, it sounds kind of okay, and I have students that play like that, and depending if you have really good ears, strong ears and stuff, you can make it sound good because you hear which notes works better than others. But if I just play like that with no play along, it sounds kind of you can't hear what tune I'm playing. And as a jazz player, you have to be able to solo in a way that you make the chords happen. So that's what's called outlining the harmony. When you're playing there's different ways you can outline the harmony. And the most basic thing is to play the notes of the chords. So let's try to do that. So play the 4 notes of each chord from the lowest note to the highest note of this tune. First chord is C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, and so on. So it's just arpeggiating the 4-part chords, as it were. Okay, let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, so this is very, very kindergarten level, right? Playing just broken chords like that. So in order to be a little bit more flexible, we need to start on other notes. So the obvious thing would be to play the reverse, starting on the highest note and descending. So now you can hear the tune, right? You can hear that that's Autumn Leaves, because I'm outlining the harmony. Now, when you're improvising, you're obviously not supposed to do that all the time, but you need to be able to do that. That's kind of the foundation that you build on, rather than scales, right? So, now, how many variations can I come up with on this? How many permutations are there? There's a whole lot, and not all of them are necessarily valid, but here are a few that I like. for example, going like this. Sometimes you can, by doing this, you can come up with some interesting melodies. And of course I can vary the notes rhythmically, and I'll have to play it on the downbeat every time, you know. Here's another one I like, starting on the 5th. There it is. And another one starting on the 3rd. Okay, there I try to break out of the same box, so I try to find new places on the fretboard. That's another topic on how many ways you can play these permutations on a guitar on this fretboard, but that's for another day. So now you can see it's already starting to sound like music a little bit more than just going. So just by starting on different notes, playing different permutations of these 4 notes, you can kind of come up with quite a lot. So I strongly recommend experimenting with that. Now, what you need to be able to do, the next thing is that you need to be able to connect the different chord tones, the different chords in a nice way, like voice leading wise. So the objective is to find the closest note. This is something that you often get introduced to when you study jazz improv. Being able to play chord tones, but to connect them the closest way. So if I play a C minor 7 arpeggio, now the next bar I want to play descending. I want to find the closest note and continue on that, which is A, right? So now I play an F7 arpeggio, B flat. Now the E flat major 7, I can play this one or this one. You know, they're both close. Not with close, I mean like a second away. A, F sharp. So it's like almost like a little etude. So I'll play that for over the changes, and you can hear what it sounds like. Okay, so I remember when I had to do this when I was starting out jazz school or whatever, and they made me do exactly that over. We all had to play the arpeggios over this tune in this way, and I couldn't really figure out the point of it. And I thought it was really difficult, and I practiced like crazy, so I passed that exam. But this is something that I find is the problem of a lot of this stuff, is that the students learn this stuff in the same way you would learn a classical piece or something. You just learn where to put your fingers, then you memorize it, but you're not really improvising. That's the problem. I remember thinking about that too when I had to do this, that I'm not really improvising, right? I'm just playing a pattern that I've memorized. Obviously, if you go to play this tune on a gig or a jam, and if it's your time to solo and you're going, people will be like, well, what are you doing? You're just practicing arpeggios. So how can you turn this kind of exercise into making music, improvising? So I showed you before, by just playing those 4 notes in different ways, you can kind of fool around with the rhythm and the variations of the chord tones. But what you need to do is you need to slow it down, I think, and do it rubato, and play the arpeggio anyway, and just make sure that you connect to the closest note when you're switching chords. So I'll try to do that, show you what I mean. I'll play chord tones anyway, like regardless of, there's no pattern to it. I'm just going to play them randomly, but I'm going to always try to connect to the next chord with a close transition to that chord. So here we go. So there was maybe a few places where I didn't connect to the closest note, and sometimes you notice I got into kind of a shape. Try to continue. All sound like kind of like classical music if you do it in a certain way. Sound like Bach. So I'm not using the backing track here. I'm playing out of time, but I think you can hear the changes go by. I hope so, at least. If you do this enough, then you will be able to do it over in time later on when you get more comfortable with this. So then of course there are other things you can do. You can superimpose more other arpeggios on top of certain arpeggios, and you can substitute some chords. You know, you can make on the dominant chords you can do all these crazy extensions and stuff. So this is again very basic thing, but you shouldn't dismiss something just because it's a simple concept. So just playing the notes of the 4 notes of the basic chord, you can, there's a lot you can do with that. So I hope that gave you some ideas of how you can practice. I'll leave you with some chord tone playing over Autumn Leaves, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.